Welcome to another episode of Around My House. Today we're going to go through the correct methods for replacing a shower cartridge. In this case it's for a Moen brand, but it's very similar for other makes and models. I've previously done a video on removing a shower cartridge, and I actually did it the hard way. I've learned a lot since then, so I'm making a replacement video to show you guys there's kind of an easier way to do this. So I hope this helps. Let's get started. All right, before we get started on anything having to do with the plumbing in the house, in my case we need to do two things. First, need to turn off the water to the house. This is my main water supply line. Okay, that's in the off position. And we've got one more thing I have to do. You may not have this. Okay, now you may be asking, why am I at the water heater? Well, I'm not shutting the water heater off, but in my case, I have a hot water recirculating pump right there, this red one right there. And that needs water in the system in order to push water through what's called a dedicated loop that gives us relatively instant hot water. I need to turn that off for a couple of reasons. And in my case, it's just an electrical outlet. I've got it connected to a timer. I'm just gonna unplug it from the timer, and you should hear the pump turn off. The reason why we want to make sure we turn this off is twofold. One, you don't want to let the pump run dry because it'll hurt the pump. And two, it's constantly pushing water through the system, and if you don't have a perfect system, when you take that valve out, it's going to spew water. So this is just a secondary precaution. I could close these valves as well, to make sure that nothing's moving through. But what will come out, we'll get some water, but what will come out will be just a little bit, and we can manage that while we're completing this cartridge replacement. Okay, thanks, bye. Okay, now the water's off now, but there's still water in the system. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this valve. And you can hear water coming out of my shower, but it's slowly trickling away. And maybe what I'll do to help it is I'm going to go over here and purge the water from here as well. And there we go. Now we're purging the water that's in the system. And that should be adequate for now, at least from the sink. We'll go back to the shower. And it's still trickling out a little bit, but it's going to trickle for a little bit. We've got some other work to do while we're waiting, so let's get busy with that. So the reason why I wanted to turn this handle on is because I want to access the set screw that's holding this decorative handle on. So in my case, it is a 3/32 Allen key, and it's normally threaded. I just broke the set screw free, and now I'm just undoing the set screw. And this screw needs to pretty much come all the way out. Probably a good idea to put something over your drain so you don't lose anything down the drain, small parts. So that screw's almost out. There we go. Come on. There we go. And now we've exposed the next part of our project. What we see here is the adapter that allows the handle to be attached to this valve. This is held on by a Phillips head screw. I'm going to remove that. And it might be important to notice that this was like this. This particular piece has a stop on it. And as you open and close the valve, it hits this bar. So when I turn it closed, it stops when it hits here. When I turn it open, it stops when I hit there. That's the maximum, and then this is the off. If we didn't have this, this valve will just spin freely. Notice that when I took it off, I was in this position, and that was technically with the handle upside down in the open position. So it's good to remember that, okay? And the next thing we have is it's a two-piece. This helps us to control, if we want, the maximum hot temperature. So this was in the center position. It's got a gear in here. And if I turn it this way, you can see that when I open the valve, it stops early and therefore limits the heat, limits the hot water. We're just going to leave that like it was, which is no adjustment. And finally we have, this is just a decorative sleeve. It's just slid in there. You just pull it out. Now, let's talk about the cartridge itself. So I've replaced this cartridge already in the past year or so, and I need to replace this one. You might go, well, how do I know what cartridge to get? Well, it's helpful to know that you may or may not be able to see this. This is a Moen, so I know it's Moen fixture. And then you can also see that there's a number right here. In my case, it's 158085. And then on the right, there's some other information, which we'll be able to get to in a minute. But if you look at that number, you'll be able to find out which cartridge this is. In this case, I know that it's a Moen Positemp T1222. All right, so let's get working on taking our next steps. So our next step is unfortunately, for safety reasons, we need to remove this decorative cover. And this decorative plate also has a bead of caulk around it. So we're going to have to break that bead, which means when we put it back together, we're going to have to put a bead of caulk back on it. That's not a really big deal, actually. But this is held on with just two Phillips head screws. Let's take care of that. And the reason why we have to do this on this particular one is I don't have access to the safety pin that is holding that cartridge in place. The cartridge, if the plumbing was pristine, the cartridge was pristine, and everything was perfect, and it was well lubricated, without that safety pin, the water pressure itself would push the cartridge out of its hole. So the safety pin holds it in place. All right, so we've got that. And then I'm just going to take a screwdriver and see if I can break the seal. You know what? I'd rather do this with a putty knife. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, I'm going to have to get a putty knife and come around here. So I'll be back. Okay, so I'm just going to use this putty knife. And I'm going to kind of break the caulk seal that's been created by the caulk that was used to prevent water from getting behind the wall, which is a good thing. And then I should, with a little luck, be able to pry this out. Simple as that. Okay, so we just got that off. The dog was barking, had to take care of it. I'm going to clean up this caulk that's been left behind. And then we'll also clean it up on this cover itself, because we're going to put a new bead of caulk in here. Get that off. And I think I did this before we put it back, but since I have it in my hand, I'm just going to go ahead and clean it off. It's that simple. Okay, we'll set that aside for now. Okay. Now by the way, here is our safety pin, or locking pin really is what it is. We're going to go ahead and remove that with these needle nose pliers. It should just pop straight up, like that. Hold on to it tightly. You don't want to lose it behind the wall, because the new one doesn't come with the locking pin. And there's our locking pin right there. And now you can see here's our cartridge. And by the way, there is also another model number on this side of the cartridge. So if you need to figure out what cartridge to get, this is the number you can get to figure out what you need. Okay? All right. Now let's get started on the correct things to do. Given these part numbers, you want to look those up online and then find the exact part number. Again, pardon me for a second. Mine is the Moen Positemp 1222 single handle tub shower replacement cartridge. Okay, I know because I've looked at that number and found it online and it matched this. So that's the important thing. Now, in my previous video on this, I showed you me replacing an exact cartridge like this. It was in another bathroom. And I struggled. I really struggled to get this out, by the way. And I used vice grips and a lot of pulling and tugging and scraping and screaming. And since then, I've learned that there's easier ways to get this out rather than possibly damaging the plumbing or possibly damaging the cartridge. So we're going to show you how to do that. All right, before we go any further, there's a couple things I need you to point out here. And that is, if you look very closely here, remember, I've opened this valve. I haven't turned this since removing the handle, okay? The handle is in the down position, which is off. I turned it up to get access to the screw, so I actually opened the valve. So this is in the open position. With this in the open position, I want you to notice that there is a little step here. There's a flat spot here, and then it drops and there's another flat spot. That is not the case underneath. On this side, this is just a flat spot, but this has two flat spots. I call it a step or a notch, okay? We got to remember that when we put the new one in, where this notch is, so that we put that stop in the right position, okay? Because we don't want to put in our handle upside down and not be able to turn it off, all right? So that's the first thing. The next thing is now technically, we should be able to just pull this cartridge out. Now, if you watch the Moen video on this, they have this mocked up bathroom where they come in with a pair of channel locks and they just go on here and they go whoop, and this just slides out. They grab the new one and whoop, and they just slide it back in and everything's great. That may not be the case for you, and I don't even know if it's the case for me, but in a previous video I did, I spent 30 minutes getting a cartridge out, and I've learned some things since then. So I'm going to show you the ways that I would go about removing this cartridge. Now, I'm not even going to attempt to see if it will pull out easily, because I want to use the most extreme methods. So that's what we're going to do. I opened the package that the Moen 1222 cartridge came in, and it contained these three items. There's this lube that we use to insert. We're supposed to coat these seals. But there's also this cover here. Now, I used to think that this cover was simply just a protective cover. No, that's not what it's for. What it's for is the old one. Notice how it fits on there beautifully. The purpose of this is to give you the ability, without breaking this plastic flange, to give you the ability to break the seal on this cartridge from the housing that it's in. And what's important to notice here, by the way, and I didn't show you, this will come and hit us later, so notice that this HC for hot and cold is up. So there's a hot water supply line here and a cold water supply line here. We need to make sure when we put the new one in, we do the same thing, okay? All right, so the first thing that you can do is, if you are lucky, you can just take a pair of channel locks and pull on this and see if this cartridge will pull out. Not even gonna attempt it because I wanna show you a different way, but it may just pull straight out. We're not gonna do that now, or at least not yet. What we are gonna do is, what did I do with that part? Oh, here it is. You may have noticed that this plastic flange fits in a cutout in the brass fixture here. It actually fits in it. So if we stick this on here and use our pliers to twist it, because this cutout is flared, if we turn it, it will actually, A, help to break any seals that might be tight in there, and B, will actually force it to come out just a hair. Now, I haven't tried this before, but we will see. Remember, the water is off. So I'm just going to take the channel locks and I'm going to turn this whole thing, and sure enough, there it goes. And I'll bring the camera in closer so you can see what's happened here is, see how it was recessed in there, and by just turning this, and because this is flared, the whole valve has already come forward about maybe 1/8 of an inch. That's good news, okay? So we're done with this tool for now. Never knew what that was, now you know. Okay, the other choice we have, or the next step we have, again, not knowing if this wants to come out easy or not, is to use the cartridge remover tool. And this has this threaded screw in it, which I'll remove here for a moment. And it has this threaded nut. And notice as I thread it, it starts to hide this piece. And its intent is to help us to remove this with equal force. So what we'll start with is, notice these two tabs. Those tabs need to line up with the plastic tabs that we have on the cartridge, okay? Then what we're going to do is, this handle came out of the way, we're going to thread into, I'm threading into the tip of that valve stem, and I doubt that it'll take the whole screw. It might. Yeah, it's taking the whole thing. Okay. And it says to place these blades over the plastic, not over the sides of the plastic, but over the plastic itself of the original cartridge. Okay. And then thread this down just to make it snug. And then using this handle, we're going to pull. Now I'm going to get some water, I know that. We're pulling with the handle, and here comes our cartridge. There we go. All right, piece of cake, huh? Notice these rubber seals came out. That's normal. They just fall out. If they fall out on you, just put them back. And then when you slide the new one in, you're good. All right, I am getting water inside the wall. Don't want to do that. So I'm going to put a towel in here to prevent that. All right, so that's the cartridge puller. Now, This cartridge puller also has a feature where you can thread this large nut and it will push against this opening and pull this out. That does not work on this particular cartridge because this cartridge has these plastic tabs on it and it'll just smash these tabs. So this puller is purely for just pulling. If you have a different type of cartridge, then you can use this puller by threading this in, which would thereby cause this nut to come out, this bolt to come out, which would pull the cartridge out with it. But we were lucky enough to get that out. Okay, set that aside. The rest is pretty easy. First thing you should probably do is make sure it's clean in here. I'm just using a toothbrush, and I'm making sure the surface is clean. In my previous video, the surface was so bad, I actually had to use steel wool because the new cartridge would not go in smoothly. So this is just to get rid of any calcium, any buildup, anything like that, all right? Then we're going to take our new cartridge, which if you remember, we have the H and C, right, for hot and cold, and then we also have the notched notch, and then we have the flat side. We have the notch and the flat side. The one I just pulled out, the valve was like this, okay? Which means it was in the open position. All right, next thing we do is we're gonna take the lubrication that they gave us. It's not really grease. It's almost like an oil. And literally you just need to put a drop or two, and I just put 9 on these rubber seals and rub it in. And I put a little bit on this round seal right here, this O-ring, just to help make sure I get a good seal. Then, using the tool they gave us with the new package, we're going to put that on here because we want something to be able to press on. We do not want to push with this stem because the stem will push through. We want to push with this. So here's our HC, which is up. And I'm just sliding the valve in there. There we go. I'm moving the towel because it's in the way. There we go, we're almost there. I'm going to use my channel locks just to allow me to get some more pressure on here because I need to seat these tabs inside these cutaways. There we go. Now those tabs are in the cutaway and the H and C are up. We've done a good job. All right, that looks good. The next step is to take our locking pin and put that in place carefully so we don't lose it. I've got that lubricant all over my hand, so that's not helping. There it goes. Shouldn't be hard. There we go. I think we got it. And we have to make sure down at the bottom that it falls into the right place. There we go. That's in. So now water pressure won't allow this to just pop out, right? Okay. Hardest part's over, folks. Now we just have to reassemble. So in my case, the first part that has to happen is I've got to put the decorative plate back on. And let's do that. And I'll caulk it later. Here's the plate. It says Moen down here, so it goes this way. And if you look deep in there, there's some places to receive a screw. So let's see if we can get to those. This will be a little tricky because you're doing it blindly. Actually found it. I'm backing it out because it's not straight. Oh, there we go. Did I get a catch? I did get catched. Alright, that's good. Just get that one started. Take this one. Same deal. Just going straight in, hoping I hit the receiver. There, I found it. Okay, good. Alright. So this is just the decorative plate, and it's meant to keep the water from dripping inside the wall. Doesn't need to be on super tight, because if you crank down on this, you're going to bend this very cheap aluminum. But it needs to be snug. Okay, that's probably pretty good. Now is it straight? Yeah, it looks pretty straight. Okay. And then just reverse the process. I'm going to take this sleeve here that was in here before, just slide it in, and then our hot temperature control, put it back in with no changes. And then this is the handle adapter, which if you recall, when I took it off, it was this way. And I know that because this is open. This is closed. Okay, so I'm putting it back on the way that I took it off. And by the way, if I didn't show it, that notch is up, which is the way I took the old one off. Okay, that valve stem in there will spin freely without this handle adapter installed. It'll spin round and round and round, but because of this stop, it prevents it from going any further than there. Okay. All right, so that's in the open position. Actually, that's in the open position. And then lastly, we just need our 3/32 Allen key. I know, that's pretty unusual size. This only goes on one way, which is like that. Oh, sorry. This only goes on one way, which is like this. And the set screw goes inside. Get that started. And then take our Allen key. And set that in place. There we go. So now this is the off position, just as this is the off position for this one. This moves so much more smoothly now, by the way, compared to this older one. This is very easy. Okay. Last thing we need to do, the last few things we need to do is I need to caulk this trim here, which I will do off camera. Then just turn the hot water recirculating pump back on and the water of the house on. And then just turn on some valves in the house because we've got an air in the system. And let that air get out and we will be good to go. So I hope that helps you guys. I learned a lot after replacing 4 or 5 of these over the years, and I believe that is probably the best way, especially for this particular Moen cartridge, the Positemp 1222. And when they get stuck, they really get stuck. So thank you again for watching, and I really appreciate any comments, suggestions. If you like my videos, please like, and if you like my videos, please subscribe. Thank you again for watching another episode of Around My House.